I mean, the question of accountability is very high here. And I think a lot of this has been reported, but there were so many details of the activities and how it happened that it was, and a lot of, especially around these kind of dirty tricks in terms of keeping themselves out of the news rather than facing their problems pretty straightforwardly. I think that was most disturbing in it, is the efforts that went into denying the problem or deflecting it versus dealing with it. And so that's, I think, the most troubling part of this, especially when there were people inside that were warning of these problems, including Alex Stamos, who was a top security official. They were more worried about how he said it than what he was saying. And I think that's what's most disturbing about this. So who's accountable? I'm not sure. There's a long list, I think.
How damaging do you think this is to the future of Facebook in terms of the leadership here? Will it just continue to be business as usual, or do you think there are going to be some changes as a result of this?
I'm not sure. I don't know who's. There's almost no accountability in Silicon Valley in general. Most people, they say, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I can't count how many times Mark Zuckerberg has said I'm sorry over the many years that we've been covering him. And so he's not going anywhere because he controls that company. And by means control, he completely controls it. And he's also the CEO and the founder. You could look, someone who came off very badly in this article is Sheryl Sandberg, who was, is supposed to be the adult supervision of Mark. I think that's a bit of a canard because he is in charge of the company and should ultimately expect to have the most responsibility. But there are other people like Elliot Schrage, who was the top policy and comms person. There's Joel Kaplan, their man in Washington, who had made a lot of decisions that seem problematic when you look at them in hindsight. So there's lots of blame to go around.
And unfortunately, the board is sort of handcuffed, Kara. I mean, with Mark Zuckerberg as being the controlling shareholder of the company, there really can't be change forced upon the company unless perhaps it's politically born. And in the article, this is a great sentence, this has finally fractured the political consensus that protected Facebook and the other big tech companies from Beltway interference. Is this the end of what Silicon Valley had? The best times are behind it at this point?
Yes, I've been talking about this a lot. Yeah. This idea of regulation is coming. And I think this is going to make it worse, especially because they testified in front of Congress. And there's a little bit of the timeline of what they knew here. And so I think, there's a public problem here. There's a personal problem. The people may be sort of horrified to work there, that kind of thing. And then there's a user problem if people find this not to be a distasteful product to use, and that's the real problem. That will be or advertisers. But I think one of the vulnerabilities they have is politically. If they have said things on Capitol Hill that weren't quite accurate, it's found out to be, especially when something like this comes out, there's even more revelations to come. I think that could be a real issue, especially with regulators.
However, how do you reconcile that, though, when the article says they have very close ties to Chuck Schumer, the minority leader in the Senate, who, according to the article, told another senator at those hearings to back off in his criticisms of Facebook and try and work with them instead.
Right. I did a podcast with Chuck Schumer around this time, and he was so positive on Facebook. I actually challenged him. I'm like, are we talking about the same company? And it was really striking to me. I thought initially he just didn't know about tech, and now, obviously, from this anecdote, he does know about tech. And so I don't know if that's a strength right now. I think it's out in the open, and so he's not going to be able to help them in that regard anymore. I can tell.
Do you think the problems will get worse for Facebook around the world? I mean, we've been really focusing on the influence here in the United States, but they've also had issues when it comes to the recent Brazilian elections, too. Yeah. I mean, the influence is not just here in this political system. It exists everywhere that Facebook is operating effectively.
Yeah, Europe has been particularly hard on Facebook and Google and other tech companies, but you're going to see it around the world. It would be really interesting if one country just bans Facebook because of this. You could see all kinds of things happening. And I think it brings to mind the larger issue is, can one person run this massive company properly? When it's a global company, it's a complex company, it's got ethical issues coming out of everywhere. Like, there's so many ethical issues that are so hard it would make a Harvard-educated philosopher exhausted. And so I think that's the question: are these people able to handle this massive problem they've got, and are they able to fix it? And I think it's having so much impact on society, it's hard to know where to go, actually.